But Hannah, you've had something interesting going on too. You seem to have triggered a huge horde of pro-Ukraine Twitter accounts that have just been descending on you and memeing you for days at this point. Can you explain to people what the heck is going on?
I mean, I can do my best, I guess. So last week, after CNN hosted a town hall featuring former President Trump, I made both an article and a YouTube video discussing his comments on the Ukraine and Russia conflict, basically making a very anti-war stance and saying that peaceful negotiation would be the best way forward to save lives and consume resources and to not risk nuclear war, which is a pretty what should be mainstream talking point. And I put that up and it got a lot of traction. And it basically woke this sleeping giant that calls itself NAFO. As best as I can tell, with minimal research, because I don't really care that much, but with minimal research, NAFO is apparently the left-wing version of alt-right groypers, basically. It's like a bunch of weird accounts that don't have any faces, any names. Like, I got thousands of comments and people trolling me over the weekend, and I saw maybe 3 or 4 accounts that had an actual name and face attached to it, and all of the accounts were like well under 1,000 followers, most under like a couple hundred followers. It was really weird. It was clearly very organized. They were making memes about me, misconstruing my
Some of the memes were so weird.
and I have to say, I think they're left-wingers because Democrats can't meme. We know that. And the memes were really bad. Like, they weren't funny. They weren't good. They weren't even, like, clever. But they were well circulated. And they basically were trying to say that I was pro-Putin, pro-genocide, which makes total sense since I was arguing for an anti-war stance. And it really made me think back to the days of the Dixie Chicks when you saw people who were against the Iraq and Afghanistan wars being called pro-terrorist, anti-military, anti-American. It was that same kind of language that basically Democrats used to get at the hands of Republicans when they opposed those wars. And now it seems the tables have totally flipped. And we're going to talk about that in our first segment about why some of that might be. But Democrats are pretty much all in on waging a proxy war in Ukraine. And as I said in my video, they don't want peace. They think Ukraine can win this, quote, quote, win this, which is completely childish, detached from reality, and will get thousands of people more killed, if not millions, if this escalates to a nuclear war in the process. I think they're completely just cracked. But yeah, NATO,
I just want to point out that, like, there's legitimate debate about issues related to Ukraine, right? But they're really distorting your position. So, for example, somebody tweeted at you, "Can I strangle her until she gives me half her flat?" Now, I don't think they were literally threatening you. I think they were trying to suggest, like, you shouldn't have to give up land if you get attacked, but a very strange and aggressive way of making that argument. And then you quote tweeted this and said, "The number of insane entitled Ukrainians or their supporters retweeting and replying to my anti-war video with stuff like this is something Americans need to see." So you called them insane and entitled, but you were specifically referring to the weirdos making these borderline violent responses to you. Now they've been photoshopping your face next to dead bodies of Ukrainians and putting entitled Ukrainians in quotes. Like, they're not debating in good faith here.
No, they're also trying to say I'm pro-Trump, which obviously I'm not. Even the video itself, I say this is like one of the few areas where I agree with Trump on anything. So they just seem really disingenuous. They're pretty seedy in their responses. They're not arguing in good faith. And honestly, if their goal is to get people more sympathetic to Ukraine, they're doing the exact opposite, because I'm about to call my senator and be like, quit giving my money to these people. My statement was about NAFO in particular, but I do think, and I'll say this, Ukrainians have a right to, defend themselves, to defend their territory if that's what they choose to do, if they think their lives and their money are worth it. They don't have a right to demand that our country come in and fund their war or send our people to die or do that to other countries. And that is what they have basically been doing. Their president has been going around and shaking down every other country, trying to get people to fund this and get involved in it. And that's fine. He has a right to make that case. But I don't think that we should have to be involved in this. And I think
not just money either.
Different.
Zelensky was asking for a U.S. no-fly zone, which would mean we'd be shooting down Russian planes. And so he's saying, like, we want the U.S. to come fight and so, like, basically, and get our pilots killed or
Yeah, so I think that that's where I draw the line. I will say they haven't changed my mind one bit. They've made me dig my heels in more, and I'm happy to, showcase this to my elected leaders and let them know this kind of behavior is what you're giving my tax dollars to. That makes me pretty upset. I will say, and I've never once, lobbed this kind of thought before because I'm not one that likes conspiracy theories or jokes about these kinds of things. To me, this is the first time I've had an internet mob come after me where I sort of suspect it's the feds. I can't prove it. I don't know how you would even begin to investigate this kind of thing, but it's kind of weird. The video did well. It didn't go viral, and yet it is attracting so much attention. As I mentioned, there is very few actual profiles amongst these thousands of commenters. They're very well organized. I kind of find it hard to believe that this is what people do with their Saturdays and Sundays. I'm a very online person. I make my living off being very online and political, and that is not what I'm doing, memeing people I dislike and trolling them on Saturdays and Sundays. So I feel like if you poked this beast, you might just find some FBI, CIA operatives behind some of these accounts, but I can't prove it. If anybody else wants to spend their time digging into it, have at it. For now, I'm just blocking and moving on with my day.